Good day, mates, and welcome to UnicornStorm. I'm Rady, and today I'm going to tell you whether or not the Kao the Kangaroo remake is worth your while. And now that I've insulted every last Australian as well as myself, I'm gonna stop with this spiel and just insult regular English speakers. Yeah, sorry. Kao the Kangaroo is a series of platformer games that had its beginnings right at the start of the current millennium. Even though Mario 64 revolutionized and popularized the way 3D platformers were made, Kao stuck to the corridor level design of early 3D platformers like Crash Bandicoot, paired with tank controls a la Bubsy and Croc, but it evolved with its iterations. It worked well enough for a simple, linear early 2000s platformer aimed at children, but it prevented the game from climbing to the top and sit there with all the fondly remembered classics. While it was fairly successful in Poland, worldwide it was received to a mixed reception. But it did cultivate a small but devoted fanbase that kept this small niche franchise relevant, and due to a Bring Back Kao social media campaign coinciding with the franchise's 20th anniversary, and the surprisingly high sales of the trilogy's re-release, the team decided to reboot the series with a modern installment. The new Kao the Kangaroo is a bit of a middle ground between the open-ended design of Mario 64 and many other 3D platformers since, and the series' roots, a tiny bit more open than its third iteration. The levels themselves are still pretty linear and often are hallways for all intents and purposes, but they quite often feature larger areas and side paths, or even hidden paths to find some extra collectibles. And there's a lot to collect in this game. Coins to buy stuff at the stores, extra lives and heart pieces straight out of Zelda, encyclopedia entries, diamonds and Kao letters that I don't know the purpose of. Maybe it's just for a completion bonus or a stat screen at the end. Maybe they will get a bit more of a purpose later in the game, but right now there hasn't been any use for those trinkets aside from them giving players a reason to explore off the beaten path. Coins in the original game gave you an extra life after having collected enough of them, so this game could have just done the same and used the diamonds you can find to purchase stuff at the store. Same goes for the letters, they could reward you an extra life, kinda like they do in Donkey Kong Country. But yeah, as I said, I don't know whether there will be a greater purpose to those things later in the game. Although I'm pretty sure there isn't much game left before I see the credits. Even so, it does mean I haven't finished the game yet. These are more my first impressions of the game, my unfiltered opinions. That's why in these videos, as opposed to my reviews, I don't always go over everything from graphics to music to story and so on. Sometimes I just focus on one aspect of a game, to showcase why it may be worth your while, as the title suggests, or why it may not. The levels are accessed through a handful of hub areas that you can explore to find even more collectibles. This game is a bit like a collectathon, well, baby's first collectathon. While there are hidden areas in each level and it is possible to miss some of the useless optional collectibles, the critical collectible, called runes, is very hard to miss. You need those runes to open up the level entrances, and the game offers a bit of non-linearity through this. You can sometimes access a later level before even attempting an earlier one, but it's not too long before the rune requirement for the next level or boss is so high that you needed to at least have visited every level and got all the runes in most of them. And with most I mean all but maybe 2 of them. I was able to skip a level and defeat the area boss and complete all levels of the next hub area, but couldn't access the next boss because I was 2 runes short. So yeah, the game doesn't offer too much freedom, which isn't too much of a problem. It's just weird that the game even features a collectible-based progression system. It could have just opened all the levels in a hub area and required you to complete all of them to access the boss. This way you could still decide in which order you want to play the levels, but it's guaranteed that you complete an area before you move on. The system just wasn't thought through, as proven by the fact that this game commits the cardinal sin of having collectibles just spawn after certain key moments. I scoured the first hub area top to bottom to collect everything, only to discover that a few runes only become available after having completed certain missions. They are not hidden behind a challenge you can't complete yet. They are just not available until the game wants you to collect them, so to not access some of the levels too early. There is one collectible locked behind a challenge you'll need to get the ability for, which would normally be fine, but special abilities in this game are not what they are in other collectathons. They are highly situational, so much that the game takes these abilities away when entering or leaving a level. Over the course of the game you'll find floating elemental orbs that give your attack the corresponding attribute. That way you can burn cobwebs or freeze bodies of water and so on. Whenever you use such an ability on a puzzle object, you'll lose a charge of that ability, and you can hold up to 3. That you have to find and which are not always available in unlimited capacity. Most of the time a puzzle contains of just finding the orb and finding the object you have to use it on. Sometimes there are multiple objects though, and there are not always enough orbs around to open up all the secret areas and continue on the critical path. On 2 occasions I had to commit suicide for the orbs to reappear, because there was no other orb to be found anywhere. Normally the game really isn't hard, whether it's combat or platforming or puzzle solving. The mechanics are pretty straightforward. Kao can run, or more accurate, jog, punch his enemies with a simple 3-hit combo as well as attack with a butt stomp or an aerial swipe attack with his tail. He can dodge roll, which doesn't so much have invincibility frames, as that he becomes just a ball of invincibility whenever he dodges. He has a handy double jump, though you don't get too much distance out of it. The jump is a bit weak, not outright bad, but I would have expected, I don't know, a higher or farther jump, or maybe a more versatile jumping mechanic from a platformer starring a kangaroo. It works well enough most of the time. It could be a bit more precise. If you have to make tight jumps, it feels a bit, well, floaty isn't the right word, but it's easy to over or undershoot your mark. There's just a lack of feedback. And you'll die if just a pixel of Kao's character model touches deep water, even if it looks like you made it to the next platform. The game isn't too punishing though. Some obstacles have weird and unintuitive timing, but it mostly isn't a huge deal to overcome or circumvent them. Most of the time. None of the challenges or mechanics are too deep or complicated, but a lack of polish can make some challenges pretty infuriating. The game is riddled with bad hit detection and animation, where enemies can still hit you after you already defeated them. Invisible walls in areas that look like they can be explored, and inconsistent ledge grabbing lead to a waste of time or a plunge to your death and kinda discourage exploration in a 3D collectathon platformer. Again, the game isn't really hard, just very cheap. Add to that a whole lot of bugs and design oversights like missing collision on some objects, wrong or empty quest descriptions displayed on the HUD, controls locking up for some reason, inconsistent or maybe just unintuitively interactions where sometimes you can break an object with any attack, but some of them that look exactly the same require a certain move. And sometimes their break animation just doesn't play, and so the object just lies around for a few seconds before it just disappears. The game is a mid-budget game and only costs $30, so I can overlook some of these issues. But even from mid-budget, even from low-budget games, I expect a certain level of polish. And it's not that the resources went to other places. This game isn't really a looker, not even for a last-gen game. And the soundtrack is also not much to talk about. Well, and the sound mixing is horrendous. Sometimes sound effects are just incredibly loud, and sometimes the background music drowns out the dialogue during cutscenes.
I've got some balls left to tighten, or she'll be shivering more than timbers. That's why I need you to get me my special range.
Tell me about this apprentice of yours.
I can do it myself, thanks. I'm Kao, and I'm looking for my father and sister.
The bugs are something the devs should attempt to fix, same with the sound mixing. The rest is fine for a mid-budget game targeted at younger kids. While the polygon count, texture quality or level of detail isn't too high, the game is bright and colorful and offers some variety in level and environmental design. Every level looks and plays a bit different from the others. While you're mostly running, jumping and punching your way through a level, you'll sometimes have to run away from an approaching wall of death, Crash Bandicoot style, or slide around rails. Sometimes levels are more puzzle heavy and sometimes lean more towards combat. Most levels are also pretty long. You can spend up to half an hour in a level, even more if you explore thoroughly. While I personally would have preferred more but shorter levels, this approach is perfectly fine. And I guess they needed these long levels to justify the outdated life system this game employs. And I don't even understand how this system works. Kao starts the game with a small number of hearts, but by finding or buying heart pieces, you can increase his health pool. Whenever you get hit by an enemy or trap or fall down a bottomless pit or drown in deep water, you'll lose 1 heart. And whenever you're out of hearts, you'll lose a life and get sent back to the last checkpoint. And all collectibles after the last checkpoint are reset, so you have to collect them again and make your way to the next checkpoint without dying in the process to keep them for good. Par for the course. Thing is, whenever you fall down a pit and lose a heart, you also get resent to the last checkpoint and all the collectibles have been reset. So why even have hearts? Or why even have lives? Why not have unlimited continues, but treat every time the player falls to their death as an actual death? But, once again, the game isn't that hard. I already called it baby's first collectathon, both in style and game design. So it's a bit weird that the game always references games made for adults.
I came here to kick your butt and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of gum.
Kick butt, rip and tear. If I left it for 5 minutes, someone's going to take an arrow to the knee and...
Aside from that, the game tries to go for a Saturday morning cartoon style, with eccentric characters that always quip and make witty or funny remarks. And I can see what they're trying to do, but they can't really pull it off. It's just really clumsy. The voice acting is there. Characters in cutscenes just stand opposite to each other and blab away without any dynamic animations. There's just nothing in terms of cinematography, and the stage's dull background music just drones on without care for what is actually said or happening during the cutscene. From where I stand, the cutscenes would work better with only text boxes and still images, preferably hand-drawn, to give the scenes as well as the characters more personality. The Skylanders games managed to convey this cartoon style pretty well, even though the gameplay was quite monotonous. But they understood the importance of highly expressive character designs and animations, of dynamic camera movement and cuts as well as timing. So yeah, the game appears a bit amateurish in many places, but again, it's fine for a game with this scope and budget and pricing. This isn't a masterpiece, nothing in this game stands out. But it's a fun, colorful platformer with a good amount of variety, and especially kids will get plenty of enjoyment out of this game. So try it if you're into 3D platformers, but keep your expectations at a reasonable level. And of course, have a great day. That's it from Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game. Might.